Thank you very much. Kathy, it's good to be with you all. We're going to be, okay, so I got lesson 1 on Rotary Opportunities. And the nice thing about this lesson is it can go in a number of different directions. And Jeff, I have a favor to ask. I wish I had mentioned this to you earlier. Can you go ahead and bring up that page 4, part 2? Thank you very much. And
I thought you'd
I'm
ask.
going to run you through the first page of the participant guide here to kind of give you an idea what we're going to do. The one thing that I do like about this particular lesson is it can be done a number of different ways. We have a small enough group. This is the first time that we've had less than like 25 people. So hopefully I'll be able to get a lot more interaction with you guys. And hopefully there's enough of you that have been in your clubs long enough to recognize which programs your clubs support, because I'd like to know that. I think we'd all like to hear what your clubs are doing. So to begin, let's talk about Rotary Opportunities. If we start at the top of the page there, it says, as I further my Rotary journey, I can explore the many opportunities available within Rotary for personal, community, and professional growth and development. And speaking of professional growth and development, I want to give you a little bit more information about me. I've been a facilitator now since we started with all of the things that we have done over the years with the Rotary Leadership Institute. I was asked to put the Rotary Leadership RLI together, put it together by our district governor, Bobby Wallace, back in 2009 timeframe. And by 2010, 2011, we finally got it together, and we started and taught our first class in 2011. I was the original coordinator for the district, and I've done that 3 or 4 years. And I've been at, and we have regional coordinators. A little bit of information about our district 5520. We're spread out so much, all the way from northwest New Mexico, all the way down into western Texas. And so we're spread out so much that we divided our district into district areas, if you will. We have a central area with Albuquerque, a southern area with El Paso and Las Cruces, east, and we have north, and we have southeast. And so that's how it all got started. And I'm so pleased that over the years we have been, we've continued to grow. I'm really pleased that Jeff Weinrack had joined our group, and I got Jeff because as soon as I met Jeff, when he joined our club, I knew he was going to be a keeper as far as training was concerned. That's just what he likes to do. And me too. I'm a trainer by, I spent 30 years in the Air Force, and I'm a trainer by trade. I learned how to be a trainer there as a flight instructor and as also as a classroom instructor. And that's what I used when I retired. I've been teaching ever since. I taught for the Department of Energy and also for the Department of State. So with that background, let's talk about all the Rotary opportunities that we have available. And what I want to do is let me finish with our opening page here. Our session goals are to provide an overview of what we call RLI structured programs. We'll be talking about the difference between structured and unstructured here in a minute. We'll talk about the benefits of the global networking groups, and what are those? What are those benefits for you and your club? And we'll discuss each program's relation to Rotary's goals and Rotarians' Rotary experience. There's a number of materials that are included here, and we'll take a look at all of these as we go through. The first insert talks about the different programs, and then there's one, number RO2, is Be a Vibrant Club. And I was chatting with Jeff about this before anybody else showed up this morning, because it's not really one of the structured programs yet. The use of structured programs, I think, can be very useful in building a vibrant club. So we probably won't have a chance to talk much about that. But a vibrant club is one that people want to join and want to stay in. It's an active club, and one of the ways that you can be active is by taking advantage of these different Rotary opportunities. So then the next insert is a list of Rotary fellowships. And by the way, fellowships do not fall under the same category as the structured programs. Neither do the next part, which is the list of Rotary action groups. Those are separate. We'll talk about those towards the end. And then finally, there's a we'll give you some information on Rotary action groups and how to get in touch with them. Also available is a global, and this is on the district website, not the district, but the RI website, global networking directory. Okay, so with that, because we have a smaller group today, what I want to start out with, and I want to hear from you. What do you think these programs are? There's a list of programs. If you've got your book open, on the second page, on the left-hand side of the page, are all 6 of the Rotary structured programs: Interact, Rotaract, Rotary Community Corps, Friendship Exchange, Youth Exchange, and RILA. And what I want to hear from you, if someone would like to step up and tell me, we're going to start with Interact. Who can tell me what Interact is? And there's the page. Jeff was just showing us the page there. What is Interact? Suzanne.
Interact is a youth arm of Rotary that is targeted to more of the school age, so junior high, high school students. In our experience, it's been the high school students in our area, and they were doing projects around the community, as well as, in our case, our children were helping to fundraise and support events to raise funds so they could travel to another country and participate in a project there.
Cool. Thank you, Suzanne. Anybody else? In particular, what is the age group that we're looking at here? Does anybody know? Laura?
So our Interact Club is just high school, but we are also looking at starting an Interact Club at our middle school. So it's basically 6th grade through 12th grade that we're
right. And thank you, Laura. And in particular, it's youth ages 12 to 18, and that's a recent change. In fact, when these documents were printed for this version of RLI, it was 14 to 18. That has recently been changed by the Council of Governors, and it is now 12 to 18. And the last time I checked, there's like almost 11,000 clubs in over 120 countries that are Interact clubs. So Interact is, it's for most schools, for most clubs, Interact means high school, but it can be, as Laura pointed out, you can have middle school. Okay, we can go all the way down to age 12. And a lot of fun. Our club, and I'm going to ask you about this in a little bit. I want to find out which clubs actually do have Interact programs. So that's Interact. Any questions about Interact before we move on? All right. How about Rotaract? Can anybody tell me what Rotaract is? I see Laura raised her hand. Go ahead.
So I have had 2 of my children be in Rotaract, and that's basically the college level through the 20s. The Rotaract club they were in was down at New Mexico State University. So a lot of times the clubs start with the university level, but as I said, they can be outside the university as well.
Okay, Steve, you raise your hand.
Well, I was just going to say the same thing, that it involves college age kids mostly. Now, I'd heard some rumor to the effect that there was an interest in perhaps just merging them into adulthood as opposed to segregating.
Yeah. Does anybody know the answer to that question? What Steve was just talking about? Rotaractors can now become Rotary members.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. They can become members of Rotary. Now, I don't know the specifics behind that. Does anybody know how that happens? I imagine they have to pay dues, okay, which I probably wouldn't have done before. But
it is
Bruce, I know.
Go ahead, Doreen.
I was going to say they can be both. So they can remain Rotaractors, and the upper age limit has been eliminated, and they can also join Rotary clubs and be Rotarians, and they don't lose some of the benefits of being Rotaractors. So, for example, they're still eligible to be Peace Fellows.
Ah, okay. Thank you very much. That's something I was not aware of. Great. We always learn something new. So Rotaract, then there's been changes, recent changes to Rotaract as well. Rotaractor can now become Rotarians. And we've dropped, it's something that I wasn't aware of, they've dropped the upper limit, which used to be 30. So that's now been dropped. And a lot of these changes will come out in the next version of RLI, which will be coming out, as Jeff mentioned, hopefully this coming year. All right, so we've talked about Interact Rotaract. How about Rotary Community Corps? Anybody know what that's about? Rotary Community Corps. My first question is, are these Rotarians or non-Rotarians? Anybody got a clue? Karen's saying, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that.
No.
I know Doreen knows the answer. Let me see what, does anybody know?
They're not Rotarians.
They're not Rotarians. Who said that?
Lori.
Hi, Lori. Very good. Thank you so much. No, they are not Rotarians. However, there are connections. We call them RCCs. These are non-Rotarians that are looking for ways to improve their communities. And so they're looking for help, basically. And there's more than 6,400 RCCs. We call them RCCs, different 76 countries. All of them are organized and sponsored by Rotary clubs. So the Rotary Club can help out in a number of ways. They can, as far as funding and that sort of thing, they can help out there. But the key here is community corps are non-Rotarians. They want to accomplish something. So probably something that probably supports Rotary and what Rotary is all about in their community, but they need help. And so Rotary's there to give them that help. So the point was they're non-Rotarian, so not a lot of people know about them. Okay, so the next one is, go ahead.
Sorry, so is that somebody that maybe would be looking for Rotary? So like as Rotarians, would they be good for recruiting? I guess I'm not necessarily confused. I understand, the difference. Right. But I guess if you want to help the community, aren't they just prime?
They certainly could be
in Rotary,
and I think that's one of the side benefits. I don't think that's something that, let's say, oh, well, we're going to help you out because we want you to become Rotarian. It just sort of happens.
Sure. Okay.
You run into people, once a Rotary club hooks up with an RCC, helps them complete some type of a project that they're doing in their community. There's a natural tie there, and that it may not go beyond that, but it may also be the people, it may be a source of potential new members for the club, but you never know how that's going to come out. Steve.
We have an organization at our club called STARS. I don't know too much about it, but I think it's a less expensive version of Rotary membership. And I think, for example, they don't typically come to our lunch meetings and buy lunch. I don't know, is this something unique to our club, or do Laura's got her hand up? Do you have that in your club as well?
We started the STARS program in Los Alamos about 10 years ago, maybe a little over 10 years ago. That's actually how we hooked up with the Camino Real Club with Arturo, going down to an opera. So it started for us as kind of that offshoot, people who couldn't meet at lunch, needed to meet after work. And it was primarily younger, although not all younger. We didn't differentiate the dues. So just naturally, if you're under 40, you pay half the amount of dues that you do when you're over 40. So the people who were under 40 were paying less dues. But it really, and I think that's where you guys took the club from, was you liked what we did in Los Alamos.
Yeah. So
it's not a national program. It's just something that we put together to.
Right. And then our club does something similar. We call it a satellite club. In fact, Jeff is the chair of that club right now. It's a small group. They meet at a brewery on Monday evenings at 5:30, so they can have dinner and have a glass of beer, something like that. Whereas our regular club meets at 7 o'clock in the morning for breakfast. And so it was an opportunity just to create something different that might appeal to certain members, and it's worked out really well.
And
we're getting a little off track here. So, because that's really not one of the programs of Rotary, but it's something that is happening in a lot of clubs. Is that they're breaking out a section of the club to better meet their needs. Our satellite club only meets twice a month.
Yeah, and that's what STARS does too. But interestingly enough, I know it's a side note, since the pandemic and everything's been virtual, our STARS people have been coming to the regular meetings instead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and we found the same things. Jeff, would you say that our attendance at our satellite group went up considerably during the COVID times when we were doing all of our training online? Oh, you're muted, Jeff.
No, our attendance has been stable, but there's more people participating online, but it's been pretty stable.
Yeah, that's what I meant. We were getting more participation, and not necessarily people joining the club, but that wanting to participate. So let's move on. So we've just finished talking about the RCC, Rotary Friendship Exchange. Anybody tell me what that is? And have any of you taken advantage of that? Okay, Laura, you were first to raise your hand, I think.
So Rotary Friendship Exchange is an opportunity to go meet with multiple Rotary clubs in another country. We have hosted Rotary clubs from other countries. The last one we had here was from Russia. We have also, for Los Alamos, and we have also participated in the one I went to with my husband, which is also a really nice thing. You can bring your significant other with you when you go on these exchanges, was to New Zealand. And we stayed with families in the Rotary clubs, and we went to 5 different clubs on the North Island, and they showed us how they do things. They showed us a lot of their projects. It's really great friendship building. Since then, we've had some of them come over here to the US and visit us. So it's really a wonderful opportunity to learn more about Rotary in the world.
Okay, very good. Anybody want to add to that? The Friendship Exchange, our club has taken advantage of that. We have actually led several friendship exchanges, one to Australia, another one to South Africa. And in turn, we have then hosted a team from groups that have come from those areas as well.
I have a question.
Bruce, I just want to mention that we will be doing intra-country exchanges until it's safe to travel abroad. Go ahead, Janelle.
Sure. Thanks, Sunny. The question that I had, is there any sort of time frame? Like if you go to make these visits, do you have to stay a week, or is it just however long you all decide that you want to stay over there?
That's a good question. And I'm not absolutely sure, but I think it's sort of negotiated, isn't it?
It's very structured. The Friendship Exchange representative for the district negotiates with the Friendship Exchange person in the other district, and they pick a time. It's usually between 1 and 2 weeks. You go as a group, you travel as a group the whole time, and there are planned activities.
Yeah,
so
it's
like being somebody's guest. Yeah.
I was going to say the one I was on was 2.5 weeks. I've seen there was one to Scotland that was 10 days. So it really is variable, but you can also stay afterwards. You typically make your own travel arrangements to get to country and from country, and then decide where you're going to meet up. So you can stay longer, do more things yourself. And a lot of times, like my husband and I, since we were going all the way to New Zealand, decided to go to the South Island after. So our hosts gave us lists of things we had to do on the South Island, which was wonderful. There are also fellowships, Rotary fellowships that you can join. There's one for travel where you can stay with Rotarians and be hosted by them. I haven't done that, but a lot of people I was on with the Friendship Exchange told me all about it. And so there are all kinds of ways you can see the world through Rotary.
Very
El
good.
Paso is a very exotic location, so if you want to do inner travel, we'll welcome you in El Paso.
Yeah, absolutely.
You all want to do it when they have their tequila.
Okay, moving on. All right, so that's the Rotary Friendship Exchange. How about Rotary Youth Exchange? Who can tell me what that's about? Suzanne.
So I failed to mention that in my introduction that our family was involved with that as well. We hosted 2 students. So Rotary Youth Exchange is an opportunity for young, in our case, it was high school age students who are traveling to another country for an extended period. In both our cases, the students traveled to our community, which was Castlegar, for a year. In Castlegar, the students are staying with multiple families over that year, so they split their year up among 3 families. And lucky enough for us, we've maintained especially good contact with one of the students we hosted and have a family relationship now. They live in central Mexico and we see each other on a regular basis. So yeah, great opportunity for young people to explore the world and develop leadership qualities and skills.
Absolutely. Anybody else with an experience with that they want to share? Laura?
I was going to say it's also a great chance for you to get involved with your club, because if you become part of your club's Rotary Youth Exchange Committee, they have all kinds of different things that they need. They need people to check out the host families' homes and take the pictures and fill out the reports and talk to the students and talk to the host families and make sure everything's going as it should be. And a lot of these are not just Rotary requirements, although the Rotary requirements are very stringent. We do our criminal background check. A lot of these are Secretary of State requirements for the US. So, or State Department, I guess I should say, for the US. So
Absolutely.
it's really an important program. And I think one of the best ways to have that ambassadorial relationship for the youth to other countries and for the youth coming to our country.
Okay, very good. All right.
Jeff, Bruce, can I add something really quick? I just want to say that we had the benefit of hosting some youth exchange students too when my daughters were in high school, and it was so beneficial for them to have different students from other countries stay in our home and go to school with them and learn about other cultures. And we're in contact with 3 of our youth exchange students, and they become part of your family. It's just a wonderful experience.
Absolutely. We hosted two students as well, one from Denmark, one from Belgium. And we sort of lost contact with them over the years. It's been about 15 years since we did that. One of the things that I think is very useful is this: if you do have high school age children, that helps a great deal. And so our first exchange student, my youngest daughter was still in high school, and it worked out really good. Our second student, by that time, all of our kids had graduated, were in college. That didn't work out quite as well. It was still a wonderful time, but by not having another child in this, that can relate to the students that's visiting, it made it a little bit more difficult. In our district, and it's different, I know, from one district to another, our youth exchange students come in and they stay with 3 different families during their time. And at least that's what we try to do anyway. It's 3, but it can be less than that. In some cases, it's one family for the entire time. Laura?
I was just going to say, it's also a great way to recruit members to your club, because even during the pandemic, we've had several people join our club, and one of them joined because he had hosted the exchange student we had from France last year, and it was really a great experience. And one of the reasons he did that was he had been an exchange student back a long time ago to Sweden. So it's really, it's one of those gifts that keeps on giving. You can bring people in, they learn. And let's face it, I wouldn't be in Rotary if my son hadn't applied to be an exchange student, because that's how I heard about it.
So, of all these different ones, I think that's pretty much, let's see, we got one more to go. That's RILA. RYLA, the Rotary Youth Leadership Award. Anybody want to tell me about RILA? Suzanne, you go ahead. Okay, go ahead, Suzanne.
Sorry, here's another one I completely overlooked. So I don't know what the A is, I apologize, but it's Rotary Youth Leadership something. And our son actually participated in that, which was I believe it was a week-long program for young people to learn leadership skills.
Absolutely, and very important. And Laura?
For our district right now, it's only for high school students, and clubs sponsor, hopefully a boy and a girl, but maybe more or maybe differently, to go to the camps. There's a separate camp for boys and separate camp for girls. And our current president is very, very interested in seeing if we can set something up in addition to our desire to set up an interactive middle school, but a similar RILA type function for sixth graders getting ready to go into middle school, or something similar to that, to kind of introduce them and get them into Interact early, and also give them that great, bonding experience.
Yeah, very good. RILA is one of our key programs that we have here in District 5520. And as you guys have pointed out, there are very strict rules about what we can do, what we can't do, especially transporting them, because we have such a large area. We have to make special considerations for transporting our students to our RILA camp, which is not too far from Albuquerque. It's up in the East Mountains. But if you're coming from West Texas or up in, that's a long trip to come up all the way from Presidio, or someplace like that. So there are special rules for that, but it is a terrific program. I've participated now a couple of years ago as a presenter for them, and had a wonderful time. Kids were just fantastic. So that's Rotary Youth Leadership Awards. It's available for you could have that available for people beyond high school, but I think in our district, we focus only on juniors. The students that are going to be juniors this coming year. Dan's shaking his head yes. I'll accept that. So these are all great programs. And the thing is, why are they important for us? Why are they, what does this do for our clubs? What's the advantage? What is of doing these things? Why, are we raising money? Not really, but on most of these things, on most of these opportunities, why do we do them? Why are they important to Rotary? What do you think? I just want your thoughts here. Janelle.
For me, I think it's really important to get the youth involved early, because they're the ones that they have that energy, they have that excitement. And I think it's just really good to get them involved and to find out what Rotary is, especially if you have identified them as somebody that wants to serve their community or has a passion for serving. I think it's just really important to get them in right away, so that way they can essentially be the future of your club.
Super. Anybody else got you? I like that. I'll say Donna, your fan went up next, and then Sandy, you'll be after that. Go ahead, Donna.
Because it makes a difference, which is what Rotary is all about, is making a difference. And by doing these programs, it makes a forever difference in the life of that kid. It expands who they are, which carries on into their family. And we never know what other contact they will have. So we do it because it makes a difference.
It certainly does. And here in District 5520, we invite our RILA students to come back to their sponsoring organization, their sponsoring club, and talk about the experience. And they all share the same thoughts about how important it was and how useful it was for them. What a great experience it was. The new friends they made from all over the district. And what they learned, and as a leader, in the leadership training. Sandy, go ahead. Sandy, you're muted.
I'm sorry. It's very much like building a legacy for Rotary. If we don't reach out in this way to these young people, how will they know? And this is these are some of the best opportunities for the individual just in their development as an individual, but it's really critically important also for the early development of a possible Rotarian, of a potential Rotarian.
Okay.
Laura? We have some hands up.
Yeah, I got Laura, and then who else did we have?
Sunny and then Nancy.
Okay, go ahead, Laura.
So I wanted to just point out, and I don't remember where I've heard it, but it has been said that if every person participated in these Rotary programs and like the youth exchange in the world, we'd have peace in the world because everybody would have that world understanding. So it's really incredibly important from the ambassador part, these students representing their countries in other countries, being able to understand the four-way test, and that's why we have the four-way test essays, all those kinds of things, and really being able to take that viewpoint into the world, because if we all live by the four-way test and exemplify that to others, that really creates a lasting effect across the world.
Absolutely. Governor Sunny.
Very much as Laura was saying, I just wanted to point out that one of Rotary's primary objectives is world peace and understanding. And that not only youth exchange, but the friendship exchange serve that purpose.
Okay, very good. And Nancy?
Just wanted to point out how our club president was a RILA, if I'm not mistaken, a RILA recipient, and now he's our club president. I don't know the year difference between one or the other, but that's one of the stories that Yasser came up and said. And so when they were talking about the RILA project, they were trying to explain it. It made an impact to me as when I started joining the club, when he got up and he talked about how he did that as a youth, and now he's come back and has participated in the club and is even now the club president. So that's definitely a strong example of how Rotary works in the youth, and they develop these wonderful adults, participating Rotarian adults.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Those are all good points. The bottom line is when we look at how Rotary clubs can use these structured programs that we've been discussing, there's so many neat things that can happen. There may be future Rotarians there. Who knows? Who knows what will happen? But it does enhance the opportunity for Rotarians to engage in Rotary service and/or fellowship, and non-Rotarians for that matter. So I got two things I've got to cover real quick because we're almost out of time. And that is, if you look in your book on the second page, page 5 actually, there's two things there. There's one on fellowships and one on Rotary action groups. These are separate. These are not considered to be structured programs, but there's information in here about them. Does anybody belong to a fellowship? I do. Rotary Fellowship. Kathy does. I am a member of the International Fellowship of Flying Rotarians. Ta-da. I don't have my own airplane or anything like that, but I wanted to try it out, so I just joined this past year. Who else wants to say is a member of a fellowship? Raise your hand.
I am.
Doreen, what fellowship are you?
I'm a member of the Rotary Global History Fellowship. I'm a history wonk.
Okay. Very good. And Laura, did you raise your hand too? Are you a member of a? You're muted, Laura.
So I did, I'm actually in process of joining right now. So I was talking about, we had during our district training, a great session on fellowships. And so I took that list back to my club, and I am in process of joining a couple of them right now because I thought they were such great opportunities. The one I'm most excited about is the one where you put your name in the book and people come and stay with you when they want to travel to Santa Fe, because that's where I live right now. And people go and you can go and stay with other people when you decide to travel when the world opens up. But there's wine fellowships, there's pretty much, you know, there's motorcycle riding, there's snow sports, there's just anything you want to do, there's a fellowship for it. And I'm also a member of the Rotary Action Group for Peace.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, very good. So fellowships, these are groups of Rotarians who get together to pursue common recreational, vocational, or service-oriented interests. So all kinds of things that are available to you there. I want to real quickly mention about Rotary Action Groups. Rotary, and there's a whole section, we've got like 3 pages of information on fellowships and action groups. And again, these are not Rotary structured programs. They are supported by Rotary, but they sort of exist on their own. And the Rotarian action groups are independent, international, Rotary affiliated groups whose members have expertise or experience in a particular area of specialization. For example, doctors, okay? Groups of doctors that go around the world doing good, okay? And they may be sponsored by a Rotary group, but Rotary action groups are separate. And let's see if there's anything else that I wanted to talk about. Also in your book, you'll notice there's an insert RO2, which is Be a Vibrant Club. Vibrancy is something that Rotary has really been spending a lot of effort on, because they believe, I'm sure they believe, that a vibrant club is one that can attract members and can keep members. And one of the things that I think why Jeff and I were discussing this earlier before you all showed up this morning. But being a vibrant club, part of being a vibrant club is taking advantage of these Rotary opportunities. And the more of them that you have, I think, the more vibrant your club can be. So with that, my time is up. I'm a little bit over. Laura, real quickly, you have 30 seconds.
I was just going to say, if you do something like Rotary Action Group for Peace, as long as you have at least 3 members and you create your little sub club, your club becomes a Rotary peace building club. And so there are cool things you can do if you have members in your club who all want to join some of these groups.
Cool. Thank you very much for that. Okay, with that, I will turn the keys over now to whoever's up next.
That's going to be our district trainer, Jeff. All right. Thanks so much, Bruce. Good presentation. Thank you. Great conversation. Thank you.
You know, when we get back in person, we're going to have to stop doing this.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to stop carrying around virtual backgrounds behind us because we're all so used to them. So, okay, it is time to discuss effective leadership strategies. And I'm going to bring up the materials just for a minute. And like Bruce, I think it's a good idea to kind of go through the little sentence that's underneath the title. I get a lot of insight when I look at one of these modules about what is really the intent by looking at the sentence. As I further my Rotary journey, I will continue to examine my own leadership style. So if you remember in part 1, we talked about leadership styles, right? So that's why this is in part 2. Engage in more complex and skillful use of my leadership skills and seize opportunities to lead. There's a lot to unpack in that. We'll get into that. There's 3 goals. There's 3 goals. The first one is interesting. Build on insights into leadership, team building, and club communication in parts 1 and 2. I find it interesting that a goal is to build on 2 modules that you haven't taken yet. But that's why RLI is a dynamic, adaptive set of classes, because we make adjustments. So you can't build on something you haven't taken yet, be that as it may. Improve our ability to lead and communicate in group settings. That's going to be huge for us in this module. And then identify ways we can win support for our goals and proposals. Okay, for a while now, I'm going to get out of this document. So Rotary Leadership Institute is not a Rotary structured program. We are supported by Rotary, but we're kind of independent. And being independent, we can adjust the curriculum. Every district can do that. We can decide to what degree we want to follow the outline. And for those of you who have not taken modules from me, I do like to deviate from the outline. So if you're trying to take notes, don't be too concerned if you're having a hard time finding where to write things down, because I don't follow this outline. I come up with my own. So can you all see the Word document here? We're going to use this to capture your ideas. Since I can't see you all while I'm sharing my screen, don't raise your hands, just unmute and speak, okay? So to me, and being in quality for my entire career, I don't like to gloss over terms. So I think if the title of the session is Effective Leadership Strategies, let's take a minute and make sure we all understand and agree to what effective means. Because what we don't want are ineffective leadership strategies, right? So who would like to give me a definition or some bullet point that clarifies what effective means to you?
I think for me, effective means it works. We can say everything that we want to say about leadership, but if at the end of the day, the strategies don't work, that's a problem.
That's great. Okay, so if I can ask a follow-up. So it works in what regard? What does it mean for something to work?
It's meaningful. There's a takeaway. People feel like they get something out of it at the end of the discussion or idea.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, who else?
Another definition might be it brings about the intended result.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I like the first one. I usually use the second one. And part of it is because it distinguishes effective from good. A lot of things can be good, but if it brings about the intended result, meaning this is what we designed something to do, we did it and we got the intended result, that's a nice way to describe effective. What else?
Similar to that, it motivates people to do what needs to be done and to perhaps take up more and bring better ideas in or additional ideas in.
So correct me if I'm wrong, that would be effective leadership, correct? I mean, that's...
It is effective leadership.
Right. Okay, so make a note. By the way, I'm going to send Kathy these notes and she will send them out to you all with other information. So we won't lose this.
Jeff, I just cheated and looked up the word or the in Merriam-Webster, but it's got some interesting things. The first one is producing decided, decisive, or desired effect, and down farther it says ready for service or action.
Oh, I like that. Okay, so with those 4 bullets, we kind of have a sense that effectiveness isn't just doing something, it's what the doing accomplishes. Right? We're not just randomly wasting energy. We're doing something that produces. Sandy, were you going to say something?
Just the word relative. That just seems like a big word to me in all of these.
Relative. What do you mean by that?
There's a focus, as these 4 speak to. We are guided by what the objective is. It's relative. Our actions are relative to what our objective is.
Oh, got it. Thank you. To our objective. Perfect. So when we're thinking about effective leadership strategies, not just leadership strategies, we need to be thinking about what is that objective? What is the intended result? If we don't have an objective, or we don't have an intended result, we don't really have effective anything, right? We're just doing things.
Right.
So when it comes to leadership, in fact, let's just go to this second question because it may come out of this. So in module 1, part 1, we had a session on basically leadership characteristics, leadership styles. If you took that from us, I think Bruce facilitated. There were 5 different leadership styles, and we kind of talked about which ones you are and kind of how they each can help you be an effective leader. What's the difference between that, kind of your personal leadership style, leadership characteristics, and leadership strategies? What's the distinction?
So there are multiple leadership styles, and it's actually important to understand multiple leadership styles because different people respond better to different leadership techniques. So it's really incredibly important to understand that if I want Jeff to do something and I want Sandy to do something and I want us all to work together, that I need to tailor my leadership style in order to best motivate them. And this is particularly important in things like Rotary, where we are getting people to do things not because we're their boss and it's authoritarian, but because we are working together and we want to create the desire in them to do what needs to be done, or what our vision is. And it's also important that it be collaborative, that we listen so that we see what's in it for them and we can help motivate what's in it for them to do what needs to be done.
Okay, that was a lot.
Sorry, I taught the leadership challenge for a really long time.
Yeah, but I want to try to get to some of your key points. So you started out by talking about the different leadership styles. We need to appreciate and understand them, and they may need to be tailored. How does that get us to thinking about strategies for leadership?
So if you are trying to put your strategies together, you want to look at what skills you need to do something that needs to get done. And then you need to look at, the people who have those skills that you need to get them done. And then you need to work with them to motivate them to do what needs to be done. And sometimes, recognition can be a great motivator. Some people are very motivated by getting some sort of recognition. Some people are they don't want recognition, although that's a very much smaller percentage of the population. So for them, there needs to be another intrinsic value to them as to how you're going to motivate them. And I look at everything as a project, not just because I'm a project manager, but the fact of the matter is very rarely in my life running a project have I actually had direct authoritative control over people. So I build the relationships and I do the analysis of who I'm working with in my team. If I can pick my team, that's wonderful. If I can't pick my team, then I still need to understand how to work with them. And also, it's incredibly important to get everybody involved because you can't always pick star people or you burn them out. And that's true with Rotary as well. You want to make sure that you even the load on your team, and our whole club is our team. So we want to pick all our different projects, figure out who's really drawn to what, and then encourage those to who are not perhaps participating as much to join in so that they feel engaged in the club and they bring their skills to bear on whatever we're doing. Sorry, a lot again.
No, that's good.
I also
go ahead.
I also think, if we're talking about a particular committee or a club, it seems reasonable to brainstorm, develop an action plan, and develop those steps for getting toward that goal. And in that action plan and those steps toward completion, lots of folks most of the time can't identify which area they have a particular skill to complete. And then they get to choose. And that often is the difference between success or no success. If I have said, you know what, I think I'm going to work in this area because I have some artistic skills, that's probably much better than for me to try and build sets for a play, because the most damage I ever do to myself is with a hammer. You are specific about where you want to apply your skills.
But while you were talking, Sandy, I added success to the first question because success is similar, right? I can do a lot of work, but it's only successful if I get the desired outcome when I'm done, right?
That is it. That's
It's the
exactly
difference
it.
between being busy and being productive, right?
It is. It
So,
clearly is.
Okay, so
I think for me,
go ahead.
I think for me, leadership strategies are, in a nutshell, how to lead. The
Yes.
bare bones, the basics, the foundation of what we need to lead. Leadership characteristics, motivational techniques, and leadership styles is how to communicate that message so that it reaches everybody, which is different for everybody, because I think, as Laura pointed out, everybody learns differently, but that's how we get it across.
So here's what's interesting. And I thank you for, that's why I have the third question here, which is my how question, because that's that when I think of strategies, I think of how, that I make that connection. How are we going to do this? Now, having said that, if I said, Janelle, how do you lead? You could answer, I'm a servant leader. But that's really not your strategy. It's just that you can answer either way. But you're right, strategies are kind of like the structural how. Ultimately, whatever leadership style we have, we have. Now, for those of you who've done, DISC assessments or Myers-Briggs or anything like that, we can take our natural style and adjust it to meet certain circumstances and needs. We can do that. It's not natural. And typically when those circumstances or needs are over, we may revert back to our natural style. Whatever leadership style we have, we can have effective leadership strategies that leverage that style. So for me, I'm a servant leader. When I was president-elect of the club, and I spent most of that year kind of observing the people and getting a sense of who were the doers and who were the talkers and who were the, folded their arms and just sat there tight. Servant leaders are not necessarily very assertive. And I had to find, there were occasions when I had to be, to address the circumstances. But my natural style was to be a servant leader. So when I noticed the circumstances, I had to find, with some help, some coaching, how I can be a little bit more assertive while not removing the natural Jeff, which is to be a servant leader, just for that circumstance, to accomplish something. And that was the key. I wasn't just doing it because I wanted to do it. There was something we wanted to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And my servant leader behavior, I didn't feel was going to get us there. So I adjusted. So going back to what Janelle was saying, I knew what we were trying to accomplish. And I didn't think that my style, when I was going to become club president, was going to, in and of itself, do that. And so I made an adjustment. It wasn't that comfortable at first because I'm so used to being a servant leader. But ultimately, if you don't have a strategy, that is, if there's not things that you in a leadership role want to accomplish, then you don't really need to have a leadership strategy because there's no desired outcome. Many of you, and we talked about this in part one, really all of you, because you're in Rotary, you are leaders. The question is, what do you want to see accomplished? What's your desired outcome? And what once you know what that desired outcome is, whether you're in a formal leadership role, and I noticed that a number of you are current presidents or you're incoming presidents, or you're going to be serving on your club board. Some of you I don't think are, which is great. We have a good kind of cross section of people here. But the question really is, what do you want to do? What do you want to do in your Rotary Club to leverage your leadership? So that's really the leads us to this third question here. So how is an organ? Let's just call it a Rotary Club. How is our Rotary Club led? Versus how do you lead as part of the Rotary Club? Let's be a little bit more specific. How is our club led versus how do you, as a Rotarian in that club, lead as part of what you want to see the club accomplish? I hope the question makes sense. If it doesn't, I'll rephrase it.
Sure. So I'm currently president this year, and this has definitely been a challenging year, and I've had to adjust things because of just the situations. But some of the things that I did that I know not necessarily everybody's going to do, but because we were not meeting in person, I took the opportunity before my year started to call every single member of our club and ask them what they were interested in and what they wanted to do for our club goals this year, given the pandemic and everything, so that I could put that together collaboratively. Another factor is, as much as Jeff said, you know, I have my own styles, and recognizing my own style, it's important that I be genuine in my style, because people need to trust and believe in me if I'm going to be their leader. And I know I have strengths. I know other people have strengths. So I engage allies who have other strengths than myself to actually work together to be a more well-rounded leadership. And that's part of what we do with our boards. When we're putting our boards together, we bring in allies to work with us to help facilitate and to enhance our leadership and the club's goals overall.
What an interesting consideration to think about club board participation. People with different strengths and styles. It gets us to something we talked a lot about this year, which is diversity in Rotary. I wouldn't want a club board of people like me. That would be kind of dull and probably not that effective. But yeah, I mean, people with different strengths, you know, we typically think about people with different backgrounds, different skills, but strengths and how they lead, that's an interesting thought, and something I would definitely agree with. There's another big, oh, go ahead.
I personally think everybody in Rotary is a leader. I mean, that's what we do. So I think our club is led by our members, whether you are on the board, whether you're the president, whether you're a past president, whatever. I think the Rotary Club leads itself. Certainly you have to have that structure, obviously, you know, that structure set in place with the board and the president and whatnot, but at no point should it be one person. I think it needs to be the entire club.
So here's this, I'm going to highlight this. That's profound to me.
It is. I think I love that too.
You know, because if you are in a leadership role, let's say a formal leadership role, club president or on the board or something, one thing you have to think about is that balance. We're not a top-down organization, and yet there needs to be some structure, right? But what's too much structure? What's not enough structure? How do you empower members to lead and get things accomplished while maintaining a sufficient, whatever that means, structure? You know, and it's interesting, a lot of us are in the business world. businesses tend to be more top-down, more structural, roles and responsibilities, performance reviews, all of that. That's not how Rotary is. So I'd be interested for those of, well, for really anyone, how do you balance kind of that member-centric leadership need with the need to have some structure? How do you balance those two things?
So Jeff, part of that for me is an analogy that I like to use for organizations like Rotary, many other organizations like that too. And the analogy I use is a symphony orchestra. And so if you ask, how is our Rotary Club led? It's really led by the music on the page, right? And that's sort of our Rotary DNA, sort of, you know, our mission, you know, transforming lives, service above self, all of those things. And how you balance that structure, I think, again, like a symphony orchestra, each section has its own section leader. Right? And so you have, you know, you have grassroots support. You know, it does lead itself, but you have section leaders to sort of mediate that into the structure. And then finally, you know, the club president is the director. And the director changes year by year, but the music on the page doesn't really change. You know, you have a treble clef and a bass clef, you have that sort of innate structure. But the club president doesn't change the makeup of the orchestra, simply directs the members with their skills and talents and abilities.
That's great. I totally agree.
Love
Yeah.
it.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, there is a distinction in my mind between club governance and leadership that might be oriented towards specific projects. I mean, governance, I mean, we have bylaws, we have boards, we have presidents, officers who carry out the mechanics of operating the club. But then the club itself, I mean, its purpose is broader than just running itself. It has projects, and then the projects, and I'm bringing up projects specifically because I'm heading a project, and I'm needing to identify resources for that project, and you know, there's no ready-made script for that, at least that I'm aware of, and so I think it would help me to have some thoughts on how to recruit the right people to get the right tasks accomplished. And you know, you mentioned earlier that several people have mentioned that they've contacted, or they've done an inventory of the members to see what their interests and skills are. And I don't know if maybe you could talk about some of the tools and techniques that you employed to do, you know, that sort of inventory, so that you could bring the right resources onto the project.
So
Jeff?
yes.
One of the things that we do in our literature on organizations is we talk about leadership. We seldom talk about followership. But in Rotary, talk about the Rotary passion. Find your passion in Rotary. And I think that speaks toward the projects that you are more likely to be in a leadership position. But as a Rotarian, you are a servant leader, and you're also willing to follow to assist someone else in their passion on another project. And I think that's what you're looking for, is to balance the willingness to serve and that passion of where your primary efforts most speak to your own soul.
That's great. So given what you've been saying the last couple of minutes, something struck me that I hadn't really thought about, or it wasn't galvanized. And by the way, I'd be interested in Sunny's input as well, because as a district governor, she's doing that same kind of balancing act at the district level, and I'd be curious about how that's going. But in part 3, we're going to talk about strategic plan and the importance for clubs to have a plan. If a club doesn't have a plan, it makes it a little bit harder, I think, for leadership to understand what those desired results are, because the desired results ought to be in a plan or some document that says, here's what we're going to try to accomplish. So if a club does have a plan, I think it also helps clarify leadership's role, because leadership should help see that plan get implemented. It provides kind of the roadmap. So in some ways, it's hard to separate the two. I can be an effective leader without a plan, but I'd much rather have a plan to lead by. Otherwise, I can go off into like Jeff world, and the club is not interested in Jeff world. So I think there, and this maybe goes to this whole notion of the governance and the bylaws and the boards, a club plan is something that leadership should rally around and help the club implement that plan. Without leadership, a plan doesn't typically get executed, does it? Or not successfully. So if it's okay with you all, I'm just going to add that here. May link to club plan. Sunny, as a district governor, I don't want to put you on the spot, but have you thought about, now that your term is nearly over, but how you've been balancing kind of the governance part of the district with the members getting engaged and empowered and things like that?
I have, Jeff, actually. I've been thinking about it for years. I think it's important first to distinguish between leadership and management, which we don't always do. And management is more the governance aspect of it, making sure that there's compliance, making sure that reports get presented and filed. Leadership to me is about marshaling everyone around a vision and having them find their role in the fulfillment of the vision. So I do think there are roles in both categories for someone who's in a district leadership position, for example. But I think without vision, the people perish. Isn't that the word from Proverbs? Without vision, the people perish. And so once there is a central vision, which is part of the plan, really, then everything else flows from that, including the rest of the plan. As a leader, I think what people have been saying about building relationships and about being a brilliant casting director, inviting people to take on the roles that really fit for them, where they not only have something to contribute, but they also have an opportunity in that position to grow, is one of the most central things that I've found myself doing.
It's interesting, that this whole notion about having the structure in place. We want the structure to support what it is we're trying to do and not get in the way, right? We want it to move things along. Yeah. Sometimes structures get in the way. Sometimes we have too much structure and it becomes bureaucratic. And we had for the district assembly a few weeks ago, we had the chief strategic officer from Rotary International, and he talked about Rotary bureaucracy. It was very interesting. I don't usually hear those two words together, because bureaucracy doesn't really have a positive connotation to it. But I do think that's something we all think about, whether we're in a formal leadership role or we are just a natural leader in our club, is how do we get things done?
Jeff, may I add one more thing?
Sure.
There's a distinction called empowering accountability, which we don't talk about much. But it's once people have taken on something, we want to get out of the way as much as we can. And the way to do that, I think, is in the setup. You know, once someone's taken something on, you want to make sure, A, that they're clear exactly what they mean to accomplish, B, that they have the resources to do it, and C, that there's some kind of ongoing communication that allows a leader / manager to make sure everything is on track. And then you get out of the way.
And I think that's one reason when Bruce did the part 1 leadership styles one, and I think he did a poll question and said, you know, here are the 5 leadership styles, so on. Yes, we are all 5. I mean, people answered all 5. I think there's something unique in Rotary about servant leadership, only because we are a service organization and we tend to think that way. So I think there's a tendency, and again, it doesn't mean that any leadership style is not valid, but it would not surprise me if we compared, let's say, Rotary to other groups, maybe even our businesses, that there's more servant leader types in Rotary because they kind of gravitate towards that model. And if you're serving, you're doing what Sunny just said. You're letting people do what they're passionate about, and you're supporting them. So you're enabling them. So instead of getting in the way and creating bureaucracy, you're enabling and you're empowering. So, okay. All right, so we spent a good amount of time going through this. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We've got about 10 minutes left. I'm curious to hear in the last 10 minutes, because as I said, when I looked at the attendance for today, a lot of you are in, let's call it formal club leadership roles, either president, serve on the board, something. I'm not sure if that's true for all of you. So I'd be interested if there is someone on the Zoom today who is not in a, let's call it a formal club leadership role. Are there things that you would like to see accomplished, and what would be your strategy, your personal strategy, to get that thing accomplished if you're not in a formal club leadership role? What would be your approach?
May I jump in again just for a moment?
Sure.
I think there's so much power in leading from your place on the playing field, and people don't usually recognize it. There's so many ways you can make your club better, and it has a lot to do with being present, with being, you know, there on time in your seat, not looking at your phone, but feeding power to whoever's in the front of the room. It has also to do with being clear on what the outcomes are to be produced and finding ways to forward that. Sometimes it means bringing people back to the point. Sometimes it means being clear before you start a meeting. What are we going to accomplish, and by when are we going to accomplish it so the meeting ends on time? You know, you can lead a lot from wherever you are. And being present and being behind the goal seems to be the crux of the matter.
Well, one thing I would add to that, Sonny, if your club has some younger members that have recently joined, let's say they're in that 1 or 2 year period, they're going to have a tendency to want to lead stuff. They want to get stuff done. And they may not be seeing the club as an organization moving forward on things that they're interested in. If you see that, try to find a way to empower them for 2 reasons. One is it will engage them more, right? If they're not seeing the club moving in a direction that they want, they'll leave. But it also, you know, one of the things we always think about with leadership is succession planning. Where are the future leaders coming from? And by the way, Rotary Leadership Institute is a great strategy for clubs to grow leaders. That's what this is all about. So if you're seeing some of those younger members, and let's say you're on the membership committee, maybe have a conversation with them. What would you like to see accomplished that perhaps we're not doing? And what role could you have if you haven't, let's say, taken the initiative because some of them may be a little bit shy at first. But what a great opportunity to get the younger members involved. And what they're going to bring to the club by taking the lead is going to strengthen the club. The club may not realize that at first, but I would say think about I mean, we all have an opportunity, but I think the younger members have a unique opportunity because I think they're looking for ways to get things done. They're very action oriented, right? So they join a group like Rotary because they think they can get more out of their membership than doing it themselves. So how is the club enabling them to be effective leaders? So any thoughts on that? Are you seeing anything like that with your younger members in your clubs? And are you seeing them being empowered and enabled to get things done?
I think we have some work to do there, Jeff. First, in terms of getting some younger members, and then in terms of listening to them. And as we grow Rotaract, we'll have more and more opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the things that we like to do in our club is when we have a new member, we like to ask them to do things, but to explain it in a way that they realize they're not going to be overwhelmed with it. Because if you're a new member and somebody gives you an opportunity and you find a way to say yes to that opportunity, your voice gets heard. And I apologize, my daughter's Doberman came in here to visit me during this too. But anyway, it's really important to get them involved, and then it also enables them to feel like they can speak up more. For example, our youngest member that joined this year is in her early 20s, and she was a RILA student. And so when she joined, we said, would you like to work with the RILA committee? And then we asked, would she like to do a little bit more? And now this upcoming year, she's going to be on our board. So, just moving things along and helping to make them feel comfortable that they do have a voice and that we do want to hear them.
And it has to happen quick, because if not, they'll get disengaged really quick. Right. Michael, go ahead.
What Laura was talking about, speaking up, that in my club, there's 2 or 3 individuals, and I know at least one of them was a past president, that I wish sometimes they would hold back, because they seem to dominate meetings, and they're the ones that always talk. And I find myself sometimes I have something to say, but they've already chimed in, and I often find myself really frustrated in our meetings that it's the same handful of people that talk all the time. And I reckon that's great, they have passion and enthusiasm, but I sometimes wish they would temper that a little and let someone else talk, and let other people talk before they chimed in.
Real quick, because that's a great insight. I would say another role of, let's say, the official club leadership, the president board, is you've got all these different personalities, you've got all these different interests, and you somehow have to find a way, and someone may kind of alluded to this earlier, to bring them together. Take that dynamic. We want diversity, but somehow take all of that individualistic kind of feel and bring them together, because if you don't bring them together, you're not optimizing all of that leverage and skill and all of that. So I would say that for the presidents and the boards and so on, that's part of your charge, is to find ways to bring all that passion and energy together to move the club forward. Otherwise, it becomes random energy, right? So I think that's really something for club leadership to be thinking about. We have a couple of minutes left.
Jeff, I just want to tag on, if I may, to something Laura pointed out. And that is, I think, with getting younger members into leadership, and our club has a growing number of younger members, but I think to remember the adage, an invitation to everyone is an invitation to no one. And to go to people individually, engage them and ask them to become involved in leadership, and, would you like to become a member of this committee? What are your interests? What are your passions? What committee might fit for you? And engage them directly in that way.
I remembered what I was going to say. So the last module that Bruce did was called Rotary Opportunities. In some ways, what we've been talking about are internal Rotary opportunities for leadership. Everyone in Rotary is a leader, but we can take all of that interest and passion and channel it. And if we can do that, we'll be a vibrant club. Got about another minute left. Any other comments or questions before we close? And we're going to take a break.
Jeff?
Dan, you want to go first?
Okay. Well, one of the things that's been noted in sociology is that in America, younger people are not listened to with the same import or acknowledged with the same respect that they are in European, Canadian, and other cultures. That maybe part of the problem we're having in recruiting is what Michael may have alluded to. I'm older, I've been there, I get to talk first. Maybe we should just think about that a little bit.
Great, thank you. Sunny?
Thank you, Dan. In a similar vein, I think Laura's point that not everyone wants to be acknowledged is a good generalization. I would assert that everyone wants to be known and appreciated for what they bring. And maybe it isn't in the form of a plaque or a medal or even standing in front of the room, but some level of expression of appreciation and acknowledgement is key for everyone, I think. So I would add that to this whole list.
And throughout my Rotary history, I would say I didn't want to be known, I want to be notorious. And I think I've become this.
I don't want to be known, I want to be what?
Notorious.
Notorious.
Okay, Kathy, back to you. Thank you all very much.
Well, with fear and trepidation about being notorious, hey, let's take a break and we will resume in 20 minutes at 9:50. And I'm going